Hello, Valencia family. We are back with another episode of Freeish, which is our series that talks about social injustice and racism in our community and, of course, in our world. My name is Denasia Harry, and joining me, my amazing friend and partner in crime, and Jeanette, who is a student leader from the Poinciana campus. And of course, joining us is Dr. Stanton Reed, who is a professor of business and accounting. And of course, Dr. Nadine Daniels, who's a professor of biology, and she is practicing pediatric physical therapy. And of course, we have two student leaders from the Poinciana campus, Wesley and Kiki. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate this. And I think the main goal of this whole Freeish conversation, but especially today, is to realize what racial injustice means, why it happens, and how we can move forward with this, and discussing the things that needs to happen in order to solve this problem. So, Jeanette, take it away. What is racial injustice?
Well, today, one of the aspects of racial injustice that we'll be talking about is racial profiling. Webster defines racial profiling as the use of race or ethnicity on the grounds for suspecting someone of having committed an offense. So when we talk about people getting stopped and frisked just for walking down the street, racial profiling comes in many ways. When they're followed in stores, it's all different ways and different aspects that affect people of color on a daily basis. So now I'm going to open it up to our panel. What does racial profiling look like to you? How has it affected your life? How is it visible?
Well, thank you for asking. For me, it's visible. I live in an area, pretty open area on the line of Winter Park, Florida, and Orlando, Florida, by the Science Center. And in February, I didn't give it any thought. I had on, I'll just say, pajama bottoms, my orange and red Nikes, and it was cold that day, so I had a hoodie on. So I'm walking, talking to a buddy of mine on the phone, and I wasn't thinking, around my neighborhood. And the first thing that came to my mind is there was a lady in front of me walking her dog. And she wasn't exactly in front of me, maybe a half a block ahead of me. And I saw her start to zig and zag, and I still didn't think about it. Then I said, well, let me slow down because you can't see me. And, that's legit. Can't even suggest that there was any racial profiling. But then I was talking to my buddy, and I kept walking around my neighborhood, and then a cop car comes. And I remember telling my buddy, I said, I got to get off the phone because a cop is coming, and I think somebody must have called on me in my neighborhood. And the car passed, and then I kept walking, and then I saw the car parked out. Was this racial profiling? And sure enough, the neighbor and the cop was out. And by the way, the police officer was very kind, but the neighbor shouted out, do you live around here? And that's when I felt like, wow, you didn't ask me if I was lost. The police officer says, hey, why are you raising your voice? And I said, then stop like this. And I'm tired of it. And I said, I've been here for 18 years. And so that's my experience.
I wanted to share something that's similar to what Professor Reed shared. When he said everything he said, I kind of had a lot of little connecting points and what they call trigger points. So before it was mentioned that I do physical therapy, and I do that into people's homes. And so one day, sometimes I'm early and I can write my notes in the car. So I decided, okay, I'm not going to sit by the house because sometimes the parent sees me and says, hey, you can come in. You don't have to sit outside. So I sat in my car a little further down. And just to let you know, I grew up in New York. So living here has been very interesting in comparing with what I thought racism was when I grew up. So I never had this experience before I moved here. So that there's things that I think about with that. But I sat there and I was writing my notes, and I saw someone come out of their home and go pull their garbage. And just a side note, I'm also a Christian. So if I say something weird, it doesn't, with the terms, I felt in my spirit, that's what I said to myself, that lady is noticing you. But I ignored it. I just was like, I'm not going to make a big deal about that. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting in a car and I'm writing notes. So everybody can see me. I'm not suspicious looking or anything, whatever you might call that. Sure enough, just like Professor Reed experienced, I see a police car come by me. I'm like, and she slowed down next to me, which was really awkward, but didn't say anything. So I'm like, okay. And then she pulled off. She parked somewhere. She came back around. And then now I'm like, all right, let's move, because I'm not sure what's happening right now. And then I never park very often unless I got permission from my patient's family to go in their driveway. In New York, you don't have a lot of driveways. So I don't feel comfortable just pulling into people's driveways. That's their private property. But today I did, because I wanted them to know I knew where I was going. I'm not lost. And of course, at this time, that family had actually went to the playground to meet me there and didn't wait at the house, which usually we leave together. And so I was like, man, I'm ringing this bell. It makes me look even more suspicious. And by now the police car had stopped. She had come out. She says, ma'am, do you know where you are? And all this. And I'm just like, why is it wrong for me? I try to be really calm. But I said, is there anything wrong with me waiting on the street in the day? And she's like, no, ma'am. And she said, it's just that you were writing notes and someone thought, there's some type of crimes where people write notes about what they're looking at or something. And I was just like, but I could be a teacher. I can be so many things. And I was like, and I'm by myself, that she says it sounds like something that two people do to kind of like look at a house and see what they can do. I didn't come out of the car. I wasn't looking in the direction. I was just writing. And she was nice. And she didn't say, she just was like, I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure. And I'm like, there's probably the neighborhood watch. We could have got that person. The fact that, because she came to me and said my name. So she looked me up already. And I was just like, I felt very scared, because I was like, could she have done something now to take me away? And all I did was sit on the street preparing, and my license plate says that I'm a therapist. So it's like, there's things there to let you know I'm maybe there for a reason. But it was the only thing that happened. And then at the end of that, the family was a Muslim family. So when I told them what happened, they were like, oh, it's driving while brown, because then they identified with having similar situations happen to them, because they're brown skin. They're also from Trinidad. So they're like brown skin and Muslim. So they're like, it's just the same old thing, and it was just, it was uncomfortable, but just, it made it lighter because we were talking about it. But that kind of thing, it just made me feel like it doesn't matter how many degrees I get. It doesn't matter how skillful I am or how professional I am. I'm still seen as this, and I'm always having to fight against that. And I get tired, because I'm like, I don't know what level you're waiting for me to achieve to be okay and to be safe. And should I even be trying to figure that out? But that's what my life has been, being raised to be aware of my surroundings and make sure you're looking okay. But even when I do that, I've still gotten accused of being a threat, and I just didn't understand why. So that was sorry to be long with that experience with racial profiling.
No, not at all. Don't apologize. That's wonderful. This is exactly the type of conversation that we want to hear. And unfortunately, the problem is that we're all sitting here as people of color, and we're nodding along with wearing a hoodie at night or sitting in our car in the day. And that's why we're here. This is why we kneel. This is why we march. This is why we protest. And I think people that don't look like us don't understand not necessarily a burden, because I feel like it's a blessing to be Black. I mean, I always feel like it's wonderful. It's where I get my strength from. It's where I get my courageousness from. But this is wonderful. I thank you guys so much for sharing. Kiki, Wesley, Janasia, is there anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, let's let Kiki go first.
I had a situation that was actually, I'm not going to say less minor, because racial profiling, there's not a major or a minor in it, but quick little stop at Sally's, I don't go there anymore, obviously, but I just went over there and needed some hair dye to dye some bundles for my best friend. And we went there twice that day because I didn't buy enough dye. So the first time I'm not sure if anything happened or I just bought my stuff and I left. But the second time, we're in the aisle, we're trying to figure out, what colors to get because we made a concoction, a custom color. So then my best friend's like, why is that lady looking at you like that? And I'm like, girl, I'm not going to worry about that. Like, I'm straight, because I know what I'm doing. I trust myself, obviously. And then it turned real bad real quickly, like real fast. I'm talking about I'm in the aisle looking at dye, and the next second there's yelling and screaming going on in the store. And I was really upset. Obviously I'm Haitian. I'm born black. I was always black. I was gonna be black for the rest of my life. Real happy about it. But like just that little inconvenience of going inside of the store and somebody looking at you because you're a certain shade or you look a certain way and they think you're doing something. I don't know when did we establish that Black people just steal. And I was hurt. The anger that I had that day came from hurt, to be honest. And it was really bad. She wanted to call the police and all of that. And I told her, go ahead, call them. It's okay, call them. I'll let them know that you were racially profiling me. That's fine. Because I know I wasn't doing anything wrong. And since that day, I've had other instances too, going into stores and people looking at me crazy. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't need to spend my money here if not because I blame a company, to be honest. I blame a lot of employees, to be honest, because no place in the world is going to sit down and say, hey, here's a test. We're going to find out if you're racist or not, So it's like, you get a job, you're just trying to work, trying to get it together, and you get racially profiled. It's sad that we have to go through that all the time, no matter what. But it's our life. It's also sad that I can say that I'm used to it as well. So that's not something that us as not only Black people, but people of color too. People who from different ethnicities, different islands, different anywhere. And I was born here in America. I'm American. I'm an American citizen by birth. So for me to get treated a certain way, I don't like it because I treat everybody with respect from the jump. So yeah, we go through these things every day. So that's what it is.
Hi everyone. Just wanted to share a little bit about what racial profiling is to me. Honestly, I never really knew there was such a term as racial profiling. Where I used to live in a ghetto neighborhood. I don't know if that's the official term or the academic term, but that's how I grew up and called it. And we had a police department, like an actual police department in our neighborhood, nowhere else but in that neighborhood, all right? Granted, it was small, but it was still a department regardless. And I basically grew up with, cops just, maybe patrolling you from time to time. Especially as a little kid, literally almost, I can't say every day, maybe like 3 times a week, there would be a cop car patrolling like the largest group of, colored people that just got out of school or who would follow someone specifically. I didn't really think of anything of that at the time, all right? A couple years later when I went to middle school and they started installing cameras literally almost everywhere on the main streets, I didn't think anything of it at the time as well. It's only now as like I'm being more informed and I'm realizing that everybody doesn't go through a similar experience that I realize how different like my experience was from them, right? So to me, racial profiling is just discrimination within the legal system, within a legal agency, regardless of if it's a little bit, regardless of if they had, something to back up that claim. If you have discrimination within it, then it might be tied to racial profiling, right? So being patrolled. Like, nobody wants their kids to be followed from school every day, right? Nobody wants cameras to be installed in their neighborhood just on the basis of, you know, making sure everybody is being watched, make sure everything is going accordingly to how they wish it was. And so it's just kind of enlightening, this whole, you know, revolution that's going on, this whole movement that's being pushed, and people explaining their experiences. It's just enlightening to see how different people's lives are and how the norm isn't the norm for everybody, you know?
Absolutely. So when I think of racial profiling, I think of assumption. You assume I'm like this because I look like this. I remember in high school, and I'll always remember this, it was history class, and my professor, well, my teacher, he wasn't a professor, said, what is wrong, like issues in America that happened. And I'm like, oh, minimum wage, because how much are we making? You want us to get an apartment and this is how much we're making, you know? And I'm like, he's like, okay, what else? I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, you don't know? Like, no, what is it? African American men. I'm like, you think I'm like, it's like I'm the Rosetta Stone for Black people. Like you assume I know that. And then my teachers would say, oh my gosh, that's like, you guys always do like weaves, right? And we get our hair called unprofessional. And I remember when I had my scarf, you know, the turban scarf, and I love to wear it because one, it protects my hair too. I don't have to deal with my hair. And my principal said, you need to take that off. And I'm like, why? You think I'm hiding something in my hair? I really can't hide anything in my hair. There's nothing to hide. But it's sad that I have to live in a society. And when Whistly said there was like cameras all over and police coming by, it reminds me of a video on Facebook where a little boy was playing basketball. And as soon as he saw a cop car, he hid behind his parents' car. That crushed me. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is the world we live in. And then when the cop passed, he went back and he started playing again. My thing is with racial profiling, it has to stop. Just because I'm a certain shade doesn't mean that I do it. Like, I'm a college student trying to get my degree. And like you said, Dr. Daniels, no matter how many degrees you get, you're never going to be good enough because of the color of your skin. And that's what racial profiling is. You're not good enough.
Wow. You guys, thank you so much. This is exactly what I think everybody needs to hear. So just to preface, I'm of mixed race. I'm half white, half Black. I identify as African American. My mom's family isn't too open to African Americans. So I grew up in Boston, in what Wesley would call a ghetto neighborhood. I grew up in the hood, but I didn't think that Boston was racist. I did not realize how many little twerks and things that I do because I am Black until I married my husband. My husband is Dominican, but he was born and raised in the Dominican Republic. He didn't come here until he was an adult. So he just lives his life. I do not just live my life. So when we were growing up, you know, we don't wash our hair every day. You know, you can't wash this every day. Oh no, baby. So my mom learned how to cornrow, and she would cornrow our hair. And I remember one time as a kid going to my aunt's house on my mom's side, and she wanted to wash my hair. And I was like, oh, no, you can't take these out. No, this is a whole process. Just got it done. No, you have to wash your hair every day or your hair will be dirty. And I'm like, no, my hair is different. And I remember her taking my hair out and using like Suave shampoo. So I know you women, I know you guys get me right now. And my hair was like this long, and like she didn't know how to comb it out or anything. And I didn't realize then. And then I remember just here recently, we were in Walmart, and it was me and my husband and my 3 boys. And we're just shopping. Like, we're more worried about the kids running around the store than anything else. So we're kind of oblivious. And there was a Caucasian woman behind me, a middle-aged woman, you know, we could possibly call her a name, but she was behind me with her husband. And I had, you know, groceries and clothes and I'm focusing on separating my stuff because I don't like, you know, groceries with shirts and then everything gets wet, and I'm pretty particular. And then my boys are running around, and I hear Ugh, how are they going to pay all that? Probably with her EBT card. Excuse me? Do they just hand those out? Is that what that is? So I let it go. My husband just looked at me and I was like, all right, trying to show my boys, be the bigger person. So I'm putting my stuff up. Now, you know, you have like the little dividers. I put the little divider so she could put her stuff. She was like, she gets out hand sanitizer. And this was before Corona, and wipes down the conveyor belt. I said, wow, you can't catch black, but okay, mind my business. So I put it out and I go to use a card. And my husband's like, no, use this one. This is the one with the rewards for grocery stores. She goes, oh, as if they could afford an American Express. Who'd they steal that from? And I mean loud, in front of my children. Who did they steal that from? And then that was it for me. And I turned around and I said, excuse me, did you say something? And she said, yeah, I did say something. Who did you steal that card from? I said, excuse me. She was like, yeah, I have that same card. And I know you people can't afford it. And I said, I don't know what. And I wanted to say all kinds of things because the rage that was inside of me. But at the same time, my sons are Black men and they don't get the privilege of talking to people any kind of way. And while there is light-skin privilege, and I'll never deny that, they'll still always be in the eyes of everyone else, Black men. So I just looked at her and I said, I don't know what you think you see or what you know about me and my family, but the hate in your heart is going to kill you long before any Black person does. And I just paid for my stuff. And she's like, you better check that receipt. I mean, like, she said stuff all the way. And I just I showed, Walmart, they search you like, and I gave her my receipt. And I kept, she's like, I don't know how they did this. They need to check the cameras. I know that card is stolen. And I just kept going to my car. And she finally security made her go to her car. But I just couldn't believe, I'm so busy living life, like, that I don't have the time to look at how somebody's paying for something. I don't have the time to worry about who's sitting in their car or who's jogging in the neighborhood or who's shopping for hair dye. And I wonder, like, what in their mind connects Black with bad, other than that they both begin with B. And I hope this movement and these conversations and the work that Valencia is doing is going to push us forward to stop that instant connect. That when we see Black women sitting in their car, maybe they need a moment to gather themselves before they go face whatever's in that house. And when we see Black men walking down the street, maybe they just want exercise. But let's go. Denasia, you have the next question. Let's move forward.
I'm sorry.
Can I say something before?
Yeah.
Of course.
And of course that's very hurtful. And I think people need a minute to kind of reflect on all of that, because we usually are used to the suggested, not the blatant. So I apologize for you having to have that experience. And I have like little tingles and everything, because it's just not, I can only imagine what it would feel like if I had to experience it all the time or any time that way. But I think what you're tackling, and we may get to this with a question, is that I think we really ignore the power of the historical context that we're in this country. And you have to remember that there was a time where it was okay to show films as white people with blackface, showing Black people raping people or stealing, and those things are in people's minds. They grew up, they were children with these ideas, and it was okay then to have those ideas. And then as things change, images stay with you. You don't even know why you feel the way you feel, because you've grown up with this perception either taught to you or shown to you or expressed to you. And now you're 40, 50 years old. You're like, well, why do I still feel that way? If you even self-assess, you may even self-assess, you just say, oh no, those people are bad, because you were told that as a child, you have to worry about these people. And because we always looking at the newer generation, when we're looking at media, we forget there are people that lived through times where it was acceptable to treat someone that way. It was acceptable to see an imagery that showed a group as a negative group. And it still exists, that you can go watch that film right now if you want to. And so if that's what you like watching and those stereotypes are in there, you still believe them. You don't bother to know anybody to actually know if they're true. You're okay with that. Well, this is the truth that I know, and I'm going to go with it. And that woman clearly has strong belief that that is true, even though it doesn't make logical sense. She decided this is so true. I actually get to vocalize it, because at one time in her life, either she observed or she knew if she did, she would be backed up and she would have been supported. And I just had my daughter learn about Emmett Till, and that was what happened there. Nobody discredited. They were able to openly say how they felt about the situation. So we do need to still, even though we're moving forward, it's always that thought that the past can influence our future if we choose to ignore it. We have to learn from it and make sure we're not creating the same systems again. How do we stop those things from staying in our future? And I think that's what we're seeing, is they never went away because we've never tackled the fact that we created systems that were okay to have these behaviors. We had them. So just wanted to interject that, because it seems crazy, but that woman has that in her, that was taught to her somehow. And now she lives by it and is not afraid to show you that that's what she feels. It has to be validated at some point.
You brought up an excellent point that I don't want to digress from the meeting, but it's imagery that is put out in the film, as like Birth of a Nation, the original Birth of the Nation. You know, this is still portrayed so underlying that we almost accept it even for us. Like when we see pictures of what is beauty, like the natural hair has made a movement. We always thought we needed to have, our hair was supposed to go like this, and it was supposed to bounce and wave. Like our hair grows this way. When you look up terms, if you look up Google right now, you look up appropriate work, professional hair, you will not see anybody that looks like us. Professional nails, you will not see anybody that looks like us. Like there's just so many things, like from the way we name our children, there's so many, the way the media portrays us. There's been a clear discrepancy in how they vocalize and show Black criminals versus white criminals. There's so much subjective and subliminal messaging of what is beauty, what is right, what is correct, what is all these wonderful words that we want to use. And it's never us. We've had to come back. How long did it take for us to get makeup that matched our skin tone? How long did it take to find pants that fit our waistlines, like in our dimensions? How long was it? You know, we think back, you know, I'm an older student. This is my second career. So, you know, I'm 36 and I think, you know, you're 19, Denasia, right? You're 19? 20. So you think this is a broad range of ages, and your life, what you've seen as a little girl and what I've seen is completely different. I remember walking into Toys R Us and not seeing one little girl that looked like me. Not one doll. I've never had a doll that looked like me. And I always said, if I had a daughter, I would make sure. I grew up without seeing people that look like me play characters on TV. So all of this, with, like she said, like Dr. Daniel said, this is historically based. This is always what we see, what they hear. And then, so we're taught that we're incorrect, basically. And they're taught that we're incorrect. So now we just have this volcano erupting, because we're saying, no, we're not incorrect. You know, we are educated. We are worthy. You're going to treat us as such. And now this is why it's friction. But thank you so much for that, Dr. Daniels. You hit it so on the head.
This is the conversation we need, because during these times, we're saying enough is enough. And this is what needs to happen. So I'm going to go on to the next question. And the question is for everybody. How is it visible in our society? And I think, honestly, what everyone just answered, that's how it's visible. You assume that because we look this way, we can't afford it. Or because we're sitting in our car, they're about to rob a place, even though you're taking notes. Assume that you're buying hair dye, but you're going to cause a situation. All of these is what's visible, but I do want to still hear you guys. So how is it visible in our society?
Well, I want to start off by saying that literally with your eyes, you can see it. Literally. With your eyes, you can, if you turn around and you like just spot somebody looking at you, you could see it. But not only see it, but you can also feel it as well. To be honest, sometimes you find somebody looking at you. You know, sometimes somebody's eyes are just wandering and they're looking at you and it doesn't mean anything. But when it does mean something, it's crazy how us as people, we can feel those things, those emotions. Like you just know innately in your heart, you know that this person is staring you down because they think this is what's happening. And it's like, it's literally crazy how we can feel it as well. So, you know, just living, basically, that's how it's visible. You just go outside, you try to live your daily life, try to do the same thing that other people are doing, but there's a little distraction, there's a little discrepancy, there's always a little hiccup when you're trying to pick something up from the store, a little hiccup when you're driving. I don't know about you guys, but me, when I drive, I'm a 360 driver. I don't know what you know about a 360 driver, but I'm looking in the rear views. I'm looking through the side. I'm making sure that there's nothing back there. Because to be honest, driving while black is scary. It is scary. Whether you got a valid driver's license or not, okay? Whether you did something or not, it is scary to drive while black, scary to drive while looking black. Some people are not even black. They probably look like us, and they get racially profiled too by the people who are supposed to protect us. So just literally seeing it and feeling it, that's how it's visible out here in our world. People are literally showing us that they feel a certain way about us when we're out and about. And that's that. It's simple.
You honestly hit it on the right point, just the way you look. My thing is, don't judge me before you don't know me. You don't know who I am. You don't know my status. Like you look at Breonna Taylor, who was an essential worker, and she died while sleeping in her own house. Nothing happened. Or you look at Tamir Rice, who was only 12 years old. He was just playing. A kid who was just playing and wondering about what life was going to be like when he gets to high school and everything. And yet a cop says, oh, that's a gun. No, it's not. It's a toy gun. Someone just holding their cell phone. Oh, it's a gun, running into their own apartment. Oh, something's up. That's what racial profiling is. You think maybe they had to run to their house because they had to go to work, change, and go right back out. Maybe because Breonna Taylor was just sleeping, trying to get a good night's sleep because she is an essential worker and she has to get up the next day and do the same thing to help our nation, and yet you killed her. So this is this is America. And the crazy thing is, it's our hands that built this country, and we didn't even ask for it. But you guys could keep answering. I'm sorry I'm getting emotional. It's just that I'm tired. I'm tired, y'all. I'm tired. That's all.
It's okay, sis. You have a right to be tired. And I also wanted to say that other people who are not experiencing this don't understand how emotionally and mentally draining that it just can be. Like last week, I had to take some days off of social media because I've just been seeing too many things, too many situations, whether it's women, whether it's men, whether it's children, whether it's the elderly. Everybody's getting targeted one way or the other, and it's sad. It's really, really sad. And the fact that, you know, you feel like, okay, maybe I want to make a change, but one person can't change the world. Literally, you can do something to get some progression, but you can't change it. And that's the most sad part about it. That's the saddest part about it. And I get super emotional talking about stuff like this. I literally shake while I speak because it's bad. It's bad. It's bad.
And it's getting worse. And I'm thinking, after years of people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Claudette Colvin, things would change. Nothing changed.
No.
Nothing changed.
Ladies, I want to thank you for your honesty. It's hard. Like, this is a hard conversation. And I agree with you 100%. I had to take off the social media from my phone because you're just bombarded constantly with living while Black. And it's criminalized. You're criminalized, you're demonized, and you're murdered. And then they say, well, like, take Botham Jean. He was shot sitting on his house eating ice cream. And you know what? The first thing the media reported, they found marijuana in Botham Jean's apartment. That's the type of we're up against every day. And you see it. You see Ahmaud Arbery. You see George Floyd. You see Breonna Taylor. We see Trayvon Martin, Philando Castile, Eric Garner, Oscar Grant, and I can keep Sandra Bland. And we can keep going. And we take that on. And I tried to explain to my husband what it was like to be Black in America. And I told him, I was like, I feel like I walk around with a wet blanket, like a soaking wet blanket. And it's hard to breathe sometimes. I feel like sometimes I can't take a deep breath because I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. I have to be aware of where I'm at all times. I have to be aware of the way that I present myself at all times. I can tell you so many times in the stores that I'm followed, that people will not assist me. How many times have you guys walked into a store or like, especially like a boutique, like a Mac or something, or a Sephora or Pandora, you walk in and they're like, oh, I'm not going to make a commission off of her, and don't even help you. I have walked in I walked into so many stores and just look around waiting for assistance. And I end up having to walk them back out because I'm like, I'm not going to give you my money if you can't even say, hey, how are you? Let me know if you need any help. I don't need you to follow me, but you could assist me. And this kind of leads us into our next question. How do you feel every time you leave the house? There was a situation, a story that was shared in one of our other meetings about a woman, not of color, stated that, her son got his driver's license. And while she was proud, she was like a little nervous, because he's young, he's 16, he's getting his driver's license. He got his driver's license. She was proud, but boys drive a little fast. And another woman, a woman of color, said, that's it? You just gave him the car? And the woman was like, well, yeah, he's a good kid. I gave him the car, he went driving. She was like, you didn't have the talk? And this woman, and honestly, she had no idea. And she was like, for us, people of color, we have to give the talk to our children. How to drive, 10 and 2. Don't put your hood on while you're driving. If you get pulled over, hands up the entire time. You tell them, can I reach for my driver's license? You don't make any sudden movements. You don't put your hands in your pockets. You say, yes, sir. No, sir. And the woman, was like, wow. Like, the room was silent because they had no idea. So I'm going to ask you guys, what as being a person of color, what is different for you? How do you feel when you go out? Does it stop you from doing certain things? Do you not jog at night? And I'm going to open it up to everyone. How has it stopped you? How has it changed you? How, when you have friends of another race or family members, how is your life different from theirs?
Me being a person of religious faith as well, I've grown up already kind of establishing that I'm different from maybe my peers, right? And then as I grew up, I always found it interesting, or I found it weird, how my parents would kind of like add rules on top of my religious beliefs on what I should follow, right? So for example, when I used to go to elementary school, everybody would, just wear what they have. They wear their little fancy shoes that cost like $500. But my parents, they'll be like, oh no, you as a Christian, you need to tuck in your shirt. You need to make sure you have a belt on, and you need to make sure that you're wearing like your nice church shoes to go to school. Make sure that your collar's buttoned up all the way, and then make sure when you have your backpack on that you have both straps on. Never carry it on one strap and never carry it with your hand. And when I'm always like, but it doesn't say that in the Bible. Like, why are you adding stuff? I don't get this. It wasn't up until I was maybe, no joke, like 13, 14, that my parents were like, no, we weren't just giving you, Christian rules. We were giving you the Black Christian rules. And I'm like, oh, it kind of does make sense, now that I'm thinking back to everything. It's just that they're trying to make me as unthreatening as possible, right? They're trying to make me look as educated as possible, as, with all the mannerisms and all the nice formalities and whatnot. And that's influenced me in how I go out today, because Ange knows and Kiki knows, like every time I enter the office, it's always like a nice shirt that's, ironed. I have my hat on. I'm never sagging. I always have on some kind of like dress shoes. I don't wear any Nike or whatever, those fancy stuff people be wearing out there, because I want to portray like an educated Black man, like someone you would accept regardless of what color my skin is, right? And the sad thing is, it's not a checklist. Like, I don't leave the house like, okay, I gotta have this, I gotta have this, I gotta have this. It's kind of like instilled in me, right? It's something that's like just inherent. I literally leave the house already knowing this. I leave the house with that unconsciously followed, right? It's just something that I already know. It's like I didn't know people could do it some other way, right? I feel like to do it the right way, you need to abide by what they see is right.
I understand completely, especially because, first of all, that's an example of how you should just period. I really cannot stand when we sag. I'm like, you guys are falling into the stereotype and we're trying to fight, and this is what y'all doing. Like, I can't stand sagging, but at the same time, if it's to the point my parents have to drill in me, this is how you're supposed to dress, like why I can't just wear a turban, because it's threatening, whatever. It's just sad that you have to do it that way, especially at a young age. You have to give the boys, I know Angie told me your boy, did you give your boys a talk yet or not yet? You did?
They're little. They're only 4, 6, and 8, so they don't talk to strangers, period. And they don't go anywhere without supervision. So we haven't had the talk yet. They're still at the age where they describe their friends by the backpack that they have. So this is like this when they say racist talk, it really is. I'm lucky, and I know it's not. I know there's gonna turn that time where they go from being adorable to threatening. But luckily, I'm not there yet. But yes, there is a certain way that when we're in the store, they have to hold on to the cart. Like, they cannot run they still have limits, because like you see, they can't turn around in the booth in restaurants, like where other children are that's portrayed to be cute. They can't, you know what I mean? Like, they always have to be the no, sir, yes, ma'am. They're not allowed free reign. I don't let my kids play in the front yard. They are only allowed to play in the backyard. So there is some range that they are limited, especially in today's society, but I'm still not quite there yet. But my oldest is getting pretty tall, so I know they're gonna look at him like he's only 8.5, but he's getting pretty tall. So I know before he hits 5th grade, we're gonna have to have that conversation, and it's sad.
I kind of want to ask Professor Reed the same question. Like, what do you feel when you go out, every time you go out?
I tell you, different stage in life than most of you. And so I've been doing this for so long that this conversation has been very healthy for me to really think about what I've gone in and just put on autopilot. I really don't think about a lot until things happen. I recognize that my kids are older, and yes, I've had to do the same thing. I've had to share with them. But I've taken the approach that I try to I try to humanize. I try to share things with them, but I try to let them go out. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. My mom and my dad are from Tennessee and Arkansas. My grandfather was a farmer. My dad was a farmer, and he left home at 18. He had a family of 12 kids. He was in the middle. So not until I got older did I recognize some of the things that how my family culture and how I grew up and ways that I have and how I've had to adjust and rewrite some of my story, because I can't go around feeling like I'm less than anything. My parents didn't drill that in me. They did do what Whistler said. They would tell me, don't ride your bike in these areas. And I didn't realize what that meant until I got older. My dad was trying, my mom were trying to save and protect me. When a police car passes by, I wish I could tell you that I don't flinch a little bit. I'm checking everything. Did I speed? And then when they pass by, I laugh and say, they weren't after me. They were just doing what they do. But I'm like, I hate that I have to, that's what I do. I flinch, and I hate the embarrassment of when I am pulled over. Let's say I am speeding. And they come up. I hate that I have to say, well, hey, do you know what you're doing? Well, I believe I was speeding by the way you were talking to me, stopping me. And I hate that I forgot to change my whole demeanor. And it really came full circle to me not too long ago. My daughter, because I have religious faith as well, we were talking about and I had brought up something and saying, wow, what if love had been administered in the George Floyd and the police incident? What would love have looked like? And I had said, hey, it would have looked like the police officer cuffing him, pushing his head down, gently taking him to the car and explaining to him that because the call was made, this is part of the protocol, but we'll get to the station and we'll work it out. And then my wife asked, well, what would it look like for the police officer? And she said it would look like forgiving him. And my daughter had it interesting. My daughter is 27. She's married, husband, and we were over her house. And she said, well, I can't forgive him. And because of my faith in my mind, and she expressed why acceptable. You may not have done anything. So, and I asked her, what was she talking about? She said, well, Dad, because I really go at things a little differently. I'll lean in, I'll run my mouth. And so I thought that she may have been thinking like that. She said, no, Pops, I'm not thinking like that at all. The way I'm thinking is, I was in the car when the police pulled you over when I was young, and I saw your whole demeanor changed. You lowered your head, you put your hands, broke me down, because you just become very submissive. And I don't like that. And that really woke me up. I was like, wow, you really don't know how your children watch you. Mm-hmm. You don't know how they look and watch and process. And here she's 27 and she's telling me that and some other stories. So yeah, when I go out, I have to be more sensitive. And yet, the strongest thing that I have to remember is, I'll say, God has me. He has me on this earth for a purpose. And yes, I get angry. Yes, I don't want certain things to be the way they are, but I keep saying, this is about kingdom work. I got to figure out how, yes, there is racial issues. And I got to be able to say, but we all are humans. So how do I deal with the trauma of humans with black and brown skin and continue to elevate, continue to reach out? And the other thing begin to learn is now I got to lean into white people. I got to ask them questions. I got to ask them how they feel, and then don't say anything. I've got to say to them, hey, tell me. And I've got to let them know that you're in this story together. This is not a separate story. I'm not on a float and you're waving at me. We both are in this story, and it's necessary that we figure out when you desire to deal with it. And to Dr. Nadine's response on educating, we have to know our history, and we have to hold people to know history, because unless we know how this has been baked into the system, we won't change the system. We will just augment rules. And some of the rules have to be revolutionized, meaning they have to be done over with. You can't tweak them, you can't bend them, you got to get rid of them. So that's kind of where I am. I hope that you've been able to hear me.
Thank you so much for sharing. You are absolutely right. In order to change things, we have to be knowledgeable first, have our research first. And I kind of want to ask Dr. Daniels the same question, then we're going to wrap this conversation up, even though I don't want to. But yeah, Dr. Daniels, what do you think?
And this is the question related to how I see it every day, correct?
Like, what do you feel every time you go out? Like, how has the color of your skin, has it ever stopped you from anything?
So I would say, and again, I don't want to make it anywhere where anybody feels offended or anything, but it was a clear difference before I became a Christian and after. Before I became a Christian, sad to say, I visualized myself as either light skin or a white person. I changed my name in my head, and I spent most of my days daydreaming of myself different. My mom raised me to say, not every man is going to want you because of the skin color you are. My mom married my father, who is lighter, because she hoped her daughters wouldn't be as dark as she is, right? So I grew up with this whole kind of thing. And she hasn't said it lately because I think she's also growing and maturing, but she was saying, well, you have a chance of having a lighter skinned child because your father's light, even though you didn't come out light. And so you grow up already with this, I don't understand what's wrong with me. I was born this way. I didn't make myself this way. And then I started to picture what I should look like to be accepted by the people I might be attracted to or whatever for the longest time. And so the biggest revolution of my life was as soon as I became a Christian, I decided, just like Stanton, Professor Reed said, I realized I don't need to care so much about all these people and what they're feeling. I have to live this life. Now, if I live this life and somehow someone comes against me, at least I was living my life before I died. I was living my life the way I needed to live it, and not in this bubble of what I think everybody thinks I have to be all the time. Now, I do believe that I need to respect people and I need to be aware of how I conduct myself. I'm not thinking I need to live my life this any old how, because there are the principles that come along with my faith that I believe are true. But I had the freedom to feel like I need to stop caring so much because people are going to be how they are. And the biggest revelation I got is they have their own thought. They don't think like you think about certain things. So how are you going to feel that they're going to be accountable to how you think about it when they think a whole different way and they think it's true? And you may not be able to fix that in your quick encounter in the supermarket. You just can be the strong person you are to be. And so one of the examples that I experienced in everyday life, I went to the gas station in DeLand, working at Stetson. I was coming back. It was busy. I tried to honk to let somebody know, hey, your gas thing is open, A white male decided that I honked because I was trying to tell him to move along, and he yelled at me at the gas station. He wasn't even the man I honked. You would think the man that I honked, who understood what the situation was, if he was angry, he would have came at me and said something. This stranger, when he finally got close enough, decided he was going to yell at me about how rude I was. And I definitely felt the feeling that you think you have the right to say this to me because of a color situation right now. It's not because I came out unruly or anything. I never spoke to anybody. And what I felt, again, because of what I believe and the fact that I'm strong in who I am, I spoke to him very calmly. I said, sir, I think you're misunderstanding. So he's yelling. I'm like, you're misunderstanding the situation. And the man's tank was out. And I'm just watching him. And I'm seeing him now de-escalating. He still wants to yell, but he realized I'm not yelling back the expectation he had for me. And I didn't succumb to it. I think sometimes we do need to express that we don't just bow down all the time. I don't want it to come off as that. But I think sometimes we enter into the stereotype that they already believe. And it just makes things continue on. Well, see, I knew it. I think we have to be strategic about how do I respond to this in the way that I know is respectful to myself and who I am, and also not carrying out that they actually think this is true. Like there's a way to handle this sometimes. And I felt in that moment, I had the time to think about, I could yell at this man and be justified at yelling at him because I don't know who he is to speak to me, and he doesn't know me and he doesn't know the situation. But I decided I'm going to address him, but I'm not going to speak to him in a yelling manner like he is. I'm going to talk to him. And I realized he started to process something in his head as he did this. Now, mind you, I never wanted to go to that gas station ever again. So that's how it affected me. I didn't need to, but I personally know I would have to purposely go to that gas station to overcome that feeling because he did what he did to me. And I'm conscious of that. But sometimes we're not, because the trauma makes us start to protect ourselves. And we're like, no. And because of my faith, I'm like, no, I'm not going to let that have control over my life. So when I see it, I decide you need to get over that, because that man don't stop you from going to the gas station. You need gas just like he needs gas. You don't need to stop going there, and you need to be able to live your life. But that's how it's seen. It's like I have to decide consciously when I feel those things that stab me and hurt and I'm scared, that I still got to park on streets. I still got to write notes. I can't stop who I am to now comply, because guess what? The physical therapy profession, I dare you afterwards to go look up how many people in terms of racial divide do you see there? When I go to a conference, I am often one of two. I was one of two when I went to school. When I go to a conference, the conference could be 200 people, and I literally can count out anyone that has a brownish tint to their skin, okay? I have to be defiant to say, I am going to do this, because I need people to see me in this space, to know other people like me can be in this space. If I let myself fall short because of the fact that this scared me, or I didn't like it and I don't know how I'm going to stop that, I can't fix his mentality. We can change all the laws in the world. If he wants to live like that, he will still live like, he'll fight it. Just like the lady did to the supermarket to Anjanette. She decided it's not possible, even though clearly legally it is possible. So I don't know what is going on there, but you've decided it has to be. I can't fix that, but I'm going to live my life. And eventually you're going to have to deal with the fact that, hey, we're doing all this stuff too. You know, we're living it, and you have to hopefully then let that marinate and decide, I can't make those determinations. And the best truth that I wasn't truth or principle that someone told me is that someone can lie on you all they want, but if you are not living the way that they're saying you're living, eventually they're going to look like the liar, not you. So if we keep breaking these barriers, eventually that lie has to go away. Black people can't be stupid everywhere. Black people can't be killing everybody. Black people can't be stealing everything, because look at us showing up in all these different areas and being successful and being wise and conducting ourselves and looking beautiful with a head wrap, with a African print dress. What is professionalism in another country? Let's take a look at that. It's still professional that way. So if it's that way, why can't it be here? There's all these different things we need to bring in so they can say, oh, let me break this mold. This must be it. But I think sometimes our anger makes us actually revolt or go back into the stereotype, because it's like, well, that's what they think. That's what it's going to be. And it ends up just keeping it going. And I'm just like, no, smack them in the face with I defy that. I don't have to live like that. And I will die at least attempting to do it this way than letting you kill me by me just shutting down on what it is. I'm not going to be your drug addict. I'm not going to be your lazy person that you think don't do anything. But if my family member is, guess what? I stand with them to hope that they do better, but that don't mean all of us are the same. Okay. You still gonna respect my family member because they're a person. Okay. We all just gonna do the things just like Stanton said, keep saying Stan, Professor Reed said that you have to embrace what is the proper protocol for that. So we'll rehab, just like your family member. Let's just talk about that. And let's not now decide your whole people have to look like this. That's not true. You have people that are also drug addicted and everybody has the same issues in their different groups. So we need to just keep living our lives and being bold about our lives and being strong. It makes it hard sometimes because you feel like I got to work so much harder. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm not letting you steal my joy. I'm not letting you steal my peace. I'm not letting you steal what is determined for my life because you've decided I have to be this. I know I got to work a little harder. And I believe in Christian faith, the Bible tells you might have to. So I understand that. I understand that it may not come easy to me, but I'm not letting you take it away because he's decided that I have a purpose. And if you don't want to agree with that purpose, it's okay. But I'm going to walk in it and at least attempt it and have the legacy that mom did something, auntie did something. Look, she did it. And look, she tried and she was happy for it. And write it on my gravestone. I lived my life the best way I could. You know, that's all I need you to worry about. I don't need you to think that I'm just going to always cower down. That's what the people we read about and talk about now did. They died for it, but they did it because they knew it had a purpose to do this. And they knew that they might die from it. So we have to try to not be afraid either and pray we won't have to die for it. But it may take that so your people can be liberated, your family, your children, they can actually go forward in these things. So it's scary, it's hard, but I think we can have joy because we know as long as I'm doing what I need to do and I'm finding out how they can, like, you can't use that law that way, that I actually get to go into that classroom now. Mm-hmm. They told me I will make sure I can be in that classroom, okay? Mm-hmm. You don't let them tell you, you tell them what to be. And fight for the laws that do need to be changed. And like Professor Reed said, totally revamped. Some things got to change completely because they were built in that mindset and start fighting. And if you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, whatever field it is, just keep moving forward in it. So that, I hope that.
No, that was wonderful. That was so wonderful. Don't apologize. That was amazing. You hit to wrap this up, and I want to say thank you once again, but you guys all made wonderful points, and I just want to summarize really quick. You hit so many different things, and I wish we had all the time in the world, and I know we don't, and just in respect of everyone's time. Wesley, you made a point. You said that your parents gave you a separate set of rules, and it became a part of you. And while, yes, I'm all about breaking stereotypes, and I won't eat watermelon. I don't order chicken in public. I think we need to get past that because you know what? Black people like watermelon, and so does everybody else in the world. You know what I mean? We eat chicken.
I don't like watermelon.
Right, I don't eat watermelon. I
don't like watermelon.
I don't know if I don't like it or because of the stereotype, I don't eat it. I literally don't know, but I won't eat it. I don't. And I always wonder because you don't want to fall into that stereotype. I don't want to be the angry Black woman. But you know what? I'm mad. I'm mad now, and I'm going to embrace it. And if it's because I'm Black, if it's because I'm a woman, if it's because whatever reason you want to get, I'm mad. So now this is what it is. Professor Stanton, you hit something so close to my soul. Like you couldn't have gotten any close. You said your daughter said she watched you as a daughter of a wonderful Black man who is extremely dark-skinned, who was born in the 50s and lived during segregation. I always thought my father was meek when it came to interactions with white people. And it wasn't until I became a mother and I thought about, well, you're in your 20s and you're full of vinegar and you're going to change the world. And then you have a baby and you're like, whoa, hold on. And I know not everybody's a parent in the room, but I'd stop breathing for them little monsters I gave birth to. So you have to. And I remember when I had my son and I had these interactions and I told my father, I said, I was so mad at you growing up. Like anytime we got pulled over and you would be like, oh yes, sir. And, all kind of like golly gee. And that's not who he is. But I realized you were born in a completely different world than the one I lived in. Just like my kids are born in a completely different world than the one I lived in. When my father was born, he had to sit in the back of the bus. You know what I'm saying? His grandfather was a slave. His father was a sharecropper. My grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman, and when he came home, he still had to sit in the back of the bus. So while men of a certain age and women of a certain age, they react differently, I think when we're younger, we tend to look at them and say, well, they did this wrong. No, you did this to survive. And this is what you were taught. So I applaud you for making it home to your children every day. Yeah. And your daughter is not, like you said, she's married and she's going to see it in a completely different way. And Dr. Daniels, ooh, baby, you hit some stuff. You said you wanted to be light skinned. Do you know, when I was a little girl, school was segregated in Massachusetts too. So what they did to integrate was they sent one white kid to an all black school and they sent one black kid to an all white school. When my mother registered for me to school, she always checked black. My mother was very aware of my nationality. And the black one was at the school district. She said, ma'am, they're going to send her to South Boston. If you check black, check white, and they'll keep her in the neighborhood. So I grew up with a huge Haitian community, and I've been the lightest thing in the classroom. I've been the darkest thing. And I used to say to them, why am I so white? Like, why am I not brown? My hair grew just like theirs. We all had the beads and the braids and the bows and the big old dresses because, you know, it was the 80s. You know what I'm saying? We got dressed up just to go to the corner store. But I hated that my blackness was called into question constantly. And I used to go to sleep and I would pray to God, please let me be dark skinned. Please let me wake up and be brown. And I did that. It wasn't until I was probably mid-20s when I started my natural hair journey was the first time that I was like really okay with being light skinned. It took me so long because I always felt like I had something else to prove to be black. Like I wasn't black enough. Like people thought I was Spanish. And then I married a Hispanic man, so my last name is Spanish. So people automatically assume. And I always tell people, you know, they're like, oh, are you Dominican, you Puerto Rican? I'm like, I'm from Wakanda. And you know, everybody else, I do like I'm from Wakanda. And Kiki and Wesley will tell you, I say it all the time. Like my welcome mat on my front door on my steps, it says welcome to Wakanda. And like, and I take it so seriously. And I speak Spanish and I embrace my husband's culture, my kids' mixedness. I do, but I always feel like my blackness was called into questions. So to hear from a beautiful, beautiful, highly educated sister that you, baby girl, you are amazing. You are so wonderful. And please don't ever, 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 ever feel that way. And I'm so glad you shared that, because I think there's a lot of, from the systematic racism, there's a lot of self-hatred that's been built into our culture, which is a whole nother conversation. But I thank you all for sharing. We have one last question, and I know this is gonna hit you guys. I'm gonna go first, and then it's open to everybody. But are we free? Are we truly free?
Absolutely.
So in two perspectives, I'll say, yes, I'm my ancestors' wildest dreams. I was a nurse I was a CNA at 16. I was a full-fledged nurse at 19. I have worked hospice and trauma and mental health in the Black community when my grandmother didn't even know how to read. You know, my great-grandmother didn't even know how to read. And so, yeah, in some ways, I feel extremely free. You know, we don't have to jump the broom anymore. I was able to get married. I married a man that does not look like me. You know, it was an amendment for me to even be created. You know what I mean? Like, so I think in a lot of ways, even every generation, but I think we have a long way to go. I don't think we are free and equal to our counterparts. And I think that needs to change. So I'm going to pass it on to everybody else. Thank you guys so much.
Well, when I think of freedom, I think of a place where I step outside and I don't have to worry about getting killed. So I'm going to say I don't think we're free yet, but like you said, we still have a long way to go. And it starts with us. Us doing this conversation is the start to freedom. I felt like the only thing we got rid of was a white only sign and the chains. Like we have been freeish since slavery times. So we're not free. Thank you. Because I'm like, it's in my head. We have been free since 1865. And like I said, we have a long way to go. So we're there, we're just not there yet.
I feel the exact same. I was about to say the same thing. Sorry, I was making sure I was unmuted. I said absolutely not. And then Anjanette said that she is her ancestors' wildest dreams. I can definitely agree with that. And then I also agree with Denasia that we have a long way to go, like a long way to go. But then at the same time as well, Dr. Daniel, she did say that it's a mindset when it comes to the other people, you know, it's a mindset. They were raised that way, a certain way. And I've always been saying that as well. Like, people are raised a certain way, so they feel a certain way. It's instilled in you and stuff like that. So being free, not necessarily. So I guess the term free-ish is the best term that we could have chosen for this. So you got that down, girl. You did your thing. You did that.
Inspired by a t-shirt. Inspired by a t-shirt. I'm like, that's our title.
But then I also wanted to say that in this time as well, especially Black women, we are doing a good job, a wonderful job. We are being whoever we want, when we want, how we want it. We're getting education. We're business owners. We're CEO, CFO, COOs. How many of the C's we got? We there. We there. We in Buckhead. We everywhere. So I think we are holding ourselves to the utmost respect at the moment. Obviously, we still got some trails to blaze, but we getting there. So free-ish is the word.
So the problem using an idealistic word like free in defining kind of like, you know, your legal systems and just the way stuff works is that it kind of means something different to everybody. It means something different for every age, right? So for me, again, all this is always from my perspective. I don't know if we're free because I do not know exactly what free is at a time like this, because I feel right now we're in a time where that definition is going to change. But I can definitely say that we are freer, and I'm proud to say that. Like, now we can actually tackle the challenges, tackle the problems that we're facing, instead of, like, you know, being silent and just like letting everything kind of settle out as it is. So are we really free? Again, I'm not sure, but we are definitely freer. I remember in high school, I was taking a psychology class, and my teacher, she goes and she asks the whole class, if you could pick any point in time to live, what would you pick? And people were like, oh, I'll live in the 70s because this seems like the best time. And some other people were like, I'll live in the 90s. I'll live in the 80s because this is their best time. And everybody spoke except for me. And the teacher goes up to me and she's like, what would you pick? I'm like, I'd pick now. And she's like, no, it has to be sometime in the past. I'm like, but now is the best time. That, like, we didn't really have a good time in the past, you know? So we are definitely free. Or are we free? I'm not sure, but I like the fact that we can at least tackle that and try to define free, try to make everything equal, you know, have these movements and revelations.
I will just say, because what Wesley said is kind of close to where I was kind of falling with it, where it actually can mean so many things to different people. And I feel like, unfortunately, we have to realize in society, even if it's a different country, different place, there's always going to be, as we reach some plateau here, we're failing somewhere over here, because people coming together is always going to bring some level of conflict. And so in this particular situation, I agree that I feel freer. It terrifies me that I could have one day been blasted with water, or dogs thrown on me, sicked on me, or hung on a tree, or raped, because I watched certain stories recently about being raped and then not having any justice for that, just because I'm Black and I'm seen as overly sexual or something to that effect. And I don't have those fears. And so I definitely feel freer, because I can only imagine what my life would be if those were the things I had to face when I stepped out the door. But I think again, it's in my mindset and what I feel about myself that I have the complete freedom, because I know in society, there will always be something, some limitation, some stronghold, and it may not be for people of my skin complexion, but now all of a sudden it's for this religious group, or it's this particular the poor, this other group now is the group that we kind of look at in a certain way, and they are feeling the injustice. So I feel like there will always be some feeling of we're not completely free in that sense. But for me as an individual, I do definitely feel like this is probably the best time. And maybe, yeah, my children will experience something even better, and that's what I'm hoping. I feel like nobody gets to tell me, how far I'm going to go. And I get to say that. And I feel the freedom in that. And it does hurt me that those on this call that are part of this, that are younger than I am, have fears that I wish were not here for this time. But because you guys are now in a place where we're actually able to have conversations and they're allowed, and people are permitting them, where I can't say that I would have been allowed. I don't know. And it's not like I'm super old here, I literally don't know if I would have been allowed in my high school time to say, let's all have a conversation about this. I think my teachers would have said no. And I don't think I would have had a place to argue about it. So I think that even shows freedom, even though my heart hurts for the fact that you guys are experiencing these things today, when I thought they would be gone when I was in high school, like, oh, this will all be gone. And that's what we say. But nothing's done to really make them go away. So I think it's that toss up, like was already discussed. It depends on what area you're looking at for freedom.
Take us home.
I'm going to say, yeah, I am free. I make choices that may have imposed consequences by somebody else, but that doesn't mean that I'm not free. I'm free to make decisions. I'm free to go to school. I'm free to have different jobs. That doesn't take away the challenge that may be before me to do those things, because there are people who are able to impose their thoughts in a space that influences some of my choices. But I am free. I also, because of my faith, I recognize that God has created me, and he says, I value you. Matter of fact, he says, you are invaluable to me. And so that has to elevate my mind to recognize that I cannot worry about other people. And I do. I'm human. There are times where I want to have the perfection so that someone can say, yeah, he did that very well. Or there's times when I'm like, wow, the person next to me who looks different than me doesn't, I judge them to say they don't have the same work ethic as me, and yet they seem to be rewarded. And I have to remind myself that I have to worry about Stanton, and I have to be accountable for what Stanton does. So in that respect, I'm free, and I'm free to love others. The hardest thing is to accept that the people who may be wronging you are lovable and have capacity to change. I just have to give them room to change, and I have to be willing to ask questions. And that's what I challenge everybody on this call. You go to Valencia, if there are some questions that you have of someone, with respect, ask them. Call them out. Say, hey, didn't, from where I sit, that look like this, but because that's in my head, I want to bring it out so I don't have to have an assumption. I actually know what you're doing. I'm free. I'm free to be aware. I'm free to accept. I am free to have action, and I am free to recognize what my actions will cause. And I'm free to say I made a mistake. I'm free to forgive, and I am free to hold myself to a higher standard that has nothing to do with people who, because of the system, have been impacted. Because quiet as a cat, everybody's been impacted. White people aren't free either. If a white person wants to date a black person, they got to deal with stuff. So they don't have freedom if you want to really look at it. They have to go through certain things as well. So I'm not going to wear that baggage. I'm going to wear my own. So yes, I am free. Nobody's got me shackled. And from that sense, that's what freedom means to me. The ability to make choices on my own. I don't define freedom as the outcome that come from my choices. I define freedom as I am free to make my choices if I'm big enough to not be afraid of what I think someone may do or say. So yes, I am.
Wow. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you to take time out your day. Professor Reed, you're outstanding. Driving home from vacation and you stuck with us and through it all. I thank you all.
Right?
Dr. Daniels for taking time away from your patients. I feel blessed. Literally, I feel blessed to have had this conversation. Kiki, Wisley, Denasia, pat yourselves on the back. We did it, guys. This conversation is far from over. We know that. This is a step. This is a giant step, but it's a step. So I want to tell the viewers at home, we will be having our next installment of Freeish on July 16th. And it is, how do we move forward from here? So keep a lookout for that. And once again, guys, thank you so, so very much. I appreciate it.
And we got rhythm, we got pride, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Our Black is beautiful. And to everybody out there, join the fight. This is far from over. Don't let your Blackness be a reason why you give up. Let it be because you are a descendant of greatness and you're going to continue that greatness for the future.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Continue having conversations. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.